everybody, and welcome to another episode of Digging Up the Obscure, where we'll be looking at the best 3D games of '95. 30 of the year's most astonishing 3D games on CD. But what's funny is when you flip it over on the back, you see that not all programs contained on this CD were developed in 1995. But that's why this isn't a late 90s PC gaming, is because most of these games were not developed in 1995. And I've already played this disc and recorded it before I did this section, so this isn't like a blind look at or anything. I'm not about to pretend like I'm about to put it in for the first time. So we're going to go ahead and get some games out of the way immediately. Like, I'm not going to cover the popular ones like Doom, Descent, Hexagon, and Wolf 3D, and Spear of Destiny, and stuff like that. Those games are very popular, and if we're talking about obscure stuff, those don't really fit, as I think everyone knows about Wolfenstein and Doom. So we'll just be looking at the other ones. And if you don't know, Shareware is essentially distributed demos, and you would get these demos, and then you would register the game by sending them money or check in a mail, and the author would send you the full game later. Doom was popularized by the Shareware model, but a lot of people didn't play past episode 1, Knee Deep and Dead, because they thought they had the full game, or they didn't want to pay for the rest of it because they thought they had a full game sitting right there. The Shareware model didn't necessarily work, but it made some games super popular. Full disclosure, I'm using DOSBox. Some of these games cause my Windows 98 machine is just straight crash. So yeah, DOSBox it is. Even made myself a custom shortcut, because I'm super dork. On top of the popular games I'm not going to cover, there's also stuff like this 3D Mania, which refused to load. I got music, but it just really doesn't want to load. Another one that didn't work was 3D Cyberpunk, which I could get to the main menu, I could read the story and the instructions, but I just couldn't get the game to actually load. It just crashed DOSBox. Another game that I just couldn't get working right was Sin 2. And I was pretty happy to see this on the disc, but no matter how slow or fast I ran DOSBox, I just couldn't get it to cooperate, which is a shame because it's still kind of a mystery. I'm going to try to get this game working using a different version or shareware copy later on. Oh, and there was another game, Think 3D, that kind of had the same thing as 3D Mania, where it just wouldn't load. Now on to the main event, the games that I want to talk about that are just insane and just typical shareware. First, we got 1994 Pool. That's the name of the game, and it opens up to this image. Like, this is some intense pool, man. The game's fairly simple. You just gotta knock the red balls into each other. You get bonuses if you bounce off the wall or the cushion. And yeah, that's about it. You got a score that you have to get to finish the level and avoid obstacles like this fireball on this level, and another level had an attack chopper. You can shoot the ball in many elaborate, sophisticated ways, but it never worked as well as just hitting it in a straight line. And I played it for a while. It's fun for what it is. And here's how you can see how shareware worked. Most of the content was locked, and when you exit the game, they'll ask you to please register. And it'll tell you that, you're playing a shareware version of 1994 Pool. If you want the full game, send me $14.94 plus $2 shipping and handling, and you will receive the full game back in the mail. I wonder how many people actually paid for 1994 Pool. But yeah, that's how shareware worked. I'm not going to go through each game's shareware screen, but that right there will hopefully help those who are new to shareware understand how this system worked. Next up was a 3D Cubic game. Essentially, it's just a Rubik's Cube. Nothing super special or anything like that. Yeah, I hate this. Then we had 3D Pitfall, which I couldn't find any shareware information about this, so I think this was actually freeware, but this is essentially a ripoff of Weltris. It's really hard to play, which is why this didn't pick up as much as the original Tetris did. It's very hard to line up your drops, and it's kind of hard to tell what part of the wireframe is pointing where. Still cool, and at least it's an actual 3D thing. Then there's 3D Tic-Tac-Toe. It's tic-tac-toe, but on like 4 levels. Riveting. Next up, we got a 100% free game called 3D Trek, where a fan made a pretty cool little Star Trek fan game. The scale's a little off in some sections, like this is supposed to be the bridge, but you're awfully tiny. The goal is to find stuff and stop a destruction sequence or something. I don't know. It was just fun to walk around and explore, and this is pretty cool that some guy made this on his own, using some construction kit he bought. Next up, we got Artillery 3D. This game is purely in French, which I guess this disc coming from Canada isn't too surprising, as there's some French speakers up there. Probably the coolest part about this game is that the author requests 100 French francs, which means this is before France, adopted the euro. Which is pretty cool. Nice little time capsule. But yeah, this is a game where you enter numbers and hope that you hit the other guy. Really tough, really difficult, and ended up shooting myself more than anything else. But I do love the use of wireframe terrain. This is pretty cool. It's a neat game. I'm just bad at it. Next we got Billy the Kid. This isn't necessarily an unknown game, but I don't see people talk about it a whole lot. This shareware version has 3 levels for you to try. 2 side-scrollers and 1 that's like top-down. It's very difficult because platforming and DOS never went hand in hand. Say what you will about Commander Keen, but it's still difficult to pick up and play as, say, Sonic or Mario, but then again, it's because I grew up with those and I didn't grow up with DOS platforming. Regardless, this was very difficult to play when you are expected to land on very shallow bridges and platforms and stuff. I actually played as much as I could of the 3 levels, didn't beat any of them because this game is ruthlessly hard. This shareware version probably would kept you occupied for hours just trying to beat this game. Anytime I thought I was getting close, I just end up dying. It's a fun game and I might try playing the full version soon. Next is Funball, which I'm having a weird deja vu moment because I feel like I've seen this before. It's a strategy game where you bounce on each other and you absorb them or break them based on your size. And the whole goal is to get to the other's base, I guess. And I ended up losing to the AI. Really fun game. It's strategy, so of course I like it. It's a really unique game. Really interesting. I like it. It's really weird. Really strange. I feel like if it was like 4 in the morning and you loaded up this game not knowing what it was, this probably would give you some weird nightmares. Next up is Hexagon, and man, this was so awesome to see at the time. I wish I recorded myself live when I discovered this because I love Hexagon. This game got put on every Flash game site known to man, so I've known about this ever since I was a little kid. And in fact, I think my grandma's the one who showed it to me. But it's a strategy game where you can choose to move one hexagon over to like duplicate yourself or to jump and not duplicate yourself. The goal of the game is to occupy the board. If you're playing as the gems or the pearls, your job is to dominate the playing field. When you move to a neighboring opponent, you will zap them and absorb them into your army. This leads to some intense moments where you can just capture a lot at once. I beat the AI, but it was on easy. It wasn't necessarily the most difficult thing ever. But this is a very, very fun game that you can still play in your browser today. There's even an official website. It's a fun game. Check it out. I love Hexagon. Speaking of getting excited, Ken's Labyrinth. Ken's Labyrinth is a very weird, borderline bad first-person shooter. You pick up this, like, whatever this is, and you go around shoot stuff as you're looking for the exit. This game came out in a variety of versions, and there's even like a big box of it. I don't have it. But I know that the story is you're supposed to like get back your dog or something like that. And I don't think this game was necessarily well received. It's weird, it's strange. I'm just glad to have some kind of physical version of this game, even if it's on a shareware disc. Next is a game called Legion War 3D. You're controlling these squares, occupying other squares to turn it into your color. So I guess you can kind of compare it to Splatoon if you wanted to. I'm not really sure what determines battles if your square that you're controlling hits another AI-controlled square. But yeah, it's the game where you're supposed to just occupy as much of the map with your color as possible. Next up is Modem 3D, and let me tell you, I had an experience with this. Let me just let it play with the audio. Let me just let it play.
This is the most trippiest, weirdest thing I've ever found, and I love it. It's an endless shooter. You go around shooting like pyramids and stuff while they shoot at you. You have shields, and then every time you kill something, you get a score, and you can just go in one direction forever. It's forever crawling. I don't know if the map restarts or if it's like randomly generated or something like that. With the music and the graphics and just the overall aesthetic, probably didn't help that I was playing this at like 3 in the morning. It is an excellent, weird shareware game. I fell in love with this. I'm sorry if you don't understand why I'm so obsessed with this Modem 3D. I really would like to have a true physical version of this, an official copy, not on a shareware collection CD, not on anything like that, but an actual amazing graphics, stamped of approval, physical Modem 3D game. But I don't know if that exists, because I can't find it. Because it doesn't help that Modem 3D is such a generic name and Amazing Graphics is such a generic name. You try Googling Modem 3D Amazing Graphics and you tell me how well that goes. You will probably see the archive.org website, but other than that, nothing. All right, well, what's next? Next, we got Mystic Towers, which I was going to include in my disclaimer about popular games when I was talking about Doom and Wolf 3D, but Mystic Towers is a game I don't necessarily see covered a whole terrible lot, and it's basically like a isometric puzzle game where you play as a wizard shooting stuff and getting keys to unlock doors. Just want to throw it out there. I don't see Mystic Towers talked about a whole lot. I don't personally like this game because I suck at it, but yeah, it was on this disc. Next up, we got Nightmare 3D House of Horrors, and this is pretty amazing to see. It's a first-person version of Hugo's House of Horrors, which I have a sealed shareware copy of. This is another one of those things my mom somehow found. But yeah, it has a lot of charm. You go around shooting mummies and werewolves and bats, and while the map is very samey and you can get easily lost, there's a lot of cool things to see and find. I knew this game was fairly popular shareware because anytime I watch someone stream or play shareware games, this usually pops up. But I'm just glad that I have it now in some way. Next up is another epic Mega Games game, and it's One Must Fall 2097, which is a fighting game, another DOS fighter, where they say it's a true Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter killer. Truth be told, it's not that bad of a game. All the characters have their own sort of backstories and their stats, and they're called pilots because they like control these robot things. And it's pretty fun. I had fun playing this. It's a pretty good DOS fighter. I wouldn't say it's better than Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, but, you know, there's a reason why you don't hear about 2097 anymore. There was a sequel that got released later that got subpar reviews, but it might be something fun to check out later. But yeah, that's One Must Fall. I have no complaints. I had fun playing it, even on a keyboard. Next up is a very basic, normal old pool game. No fireballs or anything. It's very yawn. Next up is a game called Scunny Cart, and it looks like a carbon copy of Wacky Wheels. The little bit of research I did about it pretty much said that it is a carbon copy, almost clone of Wacky Wheels, but yeah, it's one of the few DOS kart racers that exist, one of the few PC kart racers that exist. It's fine for what it is, and I'd rather play Wacky Wheels, but I guess I can be cool and hip and say that, nah man, I play Scunny Cart. Next up is Sky Roads, which is kind of like an endless runner type deal. Very difficult, very challenging, and I quite like it. Reminds me of Boson X or something like that. It's a very fun game, very interesting concept, and I quite enjoy it. It's just very, very difficult. Doesn't control very fluidly, but hey, it's great, and it seems like a fun thing to challenge friends to. Like, who can make it the furthest in a game of Sky Roads?
But yeah, that's everything that this shareware disc had to offer. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of games I forgot about, a lot of games I didn't know existed. Modem 3D is a highlight. Seeing Nightmare 3D House of Horrors is pretty cool. The Ken's Labyrinth is pretty awesome. I'm glad to have some kind of physical version of all these games. I'd like to have them in their true physical versions one day, especially Modem 3D. Don't know why I'm so obsessed with that. But yeah, this was a really, really cool disc. And I was going to upload this myself, but you can find the CD on archive.org, so I'll just link to that. You will need DOSBox, and if you're new to retro computing, DOSBox just emulates DOS in your Windows 10 machine, and you going to have to use it like a DOS machine, type in commands and stuff. So you will have to follow the wiki. But it's pretty awesome disc. I'm glad I decided to finally sit down and check this out, because I've had this for a while. And yeah, that's this episode of Digging Up the Obscure. Make sure to join the Discord. Tell me about some games you'd like to see covered, and if you know of anything super ultra obscure, let us know, because we're always looking for new games to just dive deep into. And yeah, I'm Elijah Blackwell, Senior Fossil, and I'm gonna, probably play some Modem 3D.